The cargo hauler drifted through the silent dark, its engines sputtering from a failed jump drive inside a lone human pilot named Dylan Reeves, nursed a bruised rib and a dwindling oxygen supply. His ship, the Iron Mule, had taken damage near the outer rim. After a skirmish with scavenger drones, he was not a soldier, just a freelance hauler with too much debt and too little luck. When a faint distress signal blinked across his console, he almost ignored it. But something in the modulation felt odd, too clean, too precise for a standard beacon against his better judgment. He rerouted what little power remained and followed the signal to a derelict transport vessel adrift near asteroid cluster K7. The journey took hours. His oxygen levels dipped below 40% and his suit began beeping warnings. He ignored them, his eyes fixed on the flickering outline of the wreck growing larger on his screen. It was small, sleek, and unlike any civilian craft he had seen before. No transponder, no registry, no markings, just smooth black hull scarred by micrometeorites and something else, something that looked like claw marks. He docked manually using the last of his maneuvering thrusters. The airlock hissed open and stale, cold air rushed. In he stepped inside, weapon drawn, though he knew it would do little good against vacuum or worse. The interior was dark except for a few emergency strips casting long shadows across the corridor walls curved inward like the inside of a bone. The floor was warm under his boots, which made no sense in a dead ship. He moved slowly past sealed doors and shattered panels until he reached the cockpit. There she was, a woman lay slumped over the controls, her skin pale with a faint silver sheen like moonlight on water. Her hair long and fine shimmered with every breath she took. She wore a flight suit unlike anything Dylan had seen. Seamless and dark with faint lines of light pulsing along the seams beside her, curled in a nest of scorched wiring, was a creature no bigger than a house cat, its scales shifting between deep violet and midnight blue. It lifted its head as Dylan entered, eyes glowing faintly like embers in a dying fire. It hissed softly, but did not move to attack. Dylan lowered his weapon slowly. He had seen strange things in his years hauling cargo through the fringe worlds, but this felt different. This felt ancient. He checked the woman's pulse, weak but steady, her breathing shallow but regular. She was alive. He dragged her carefully from the cockpit, her body light almost too light for a human. Then gathered the small creature in his arms. It did not struggle, only watched him with those burning eyes as if weighing his worth back aboard the Iron Mule he laid her on. The medbay cot patched her wounds with gel from the emergency kit and fed the creature nutrient paste meant for shipboard rodents. It lapped the paste up, then curled beside the woman, its tail wrapped protectively around her wrist for 2 days. Dylan monitored her vitals. Oxygen levels, stabilized power reserves, climbed slowly as the solar collectors caught stray light from a distant star. On the 3rd day she woke. Her eyes opened slowly, not with confusion, but with calm awareness. As if she had expected to wake here in this place with this man watching over her. She sat up without help, her movements fluid and precise. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but clear. Dylan nodded. "Who are you?" "My name is Lila," she said. "Where are you from?" "A place far from here." He wanted to press further, but something in her gaze stopped him. It was not fear or deception. It was something deeper, like the quiet of deep space itself. He offered her water. She drank it slowly, then looked around the small cabin, her eyes lingering on the ship's controls, the flickering readouts, the worn leather of the pilot's seat. "You fly alone?" she asked. "Usually." She nodded, then looked at the small creature now awake and watching them both. It stretched its wings slightly, not large wings, but enough to show they were real. "Not decorative. That is Ember," she said. "Your pet, my friend." Dylan did not argue. He had learned long ago that survival meant minding your own business in the void. But this woman, this Lila, did not feel like just another passenger over. The next few hours she moved around the ship with quiet confidence. She asked few questions but seemed to understand the layout instantly. When the nav computer glitched, she placed a hand on the console and the screen cleared itself. When the oxygen recycler coughed, she tapped a panel and it hummed back to life. "You know ships well," he said. "I have flown many." He watched her as she studied the star charts on the main display, her fingers tracing routes he had never seen before. Some of them passed through regions marked as unstable or forbidden. "You planning to go somewhere specific?" he asked. She turned to him, her eyes holding his for a long moment, then nodded. I need to reach the Helios belt. That is deep neutral. Space. I know. He hesitated, then nodded. You can stay aboard until then. Thank you. That night as he tried to sleep, he heard soft sounds from the med bay. Not voices, but something like humming, low and resonant. It made the metal walls vibrate slightly. He got up and peeked through the door. Leela sat cross-legged on the floor, Ember in her lap, her hands resting on its back, both of them glowing faintly with a soft golden light. It faded as soon as she noticed him. Sorry, she said. I did not mean to wake. It's fine, he said. What was that? A healing ritual. You are hurt. Not anymore. He wanted to ask more, but the look in her eyes told him some doors were not meant to be opened yet. The next morning, the ship felt different. Lighter, smoother, as if it had been tuned by invisible hands. The engines purred instead of groaned. The lights burned brighter. The air smelled cleaner. Dylan checked the logs. Nothing had changed on paper. But something had changed in truth. He found Lila in the cockpit again, staring out at the stars. You ever been out this far? He asked. Many times, alone, not always. He sat beside her, silence stretched between them. Comfortable, not tense. Why were you on that wreck? She did not answer right away. Then she said, I was running from what? People who want something I have. What is it? Something they should not have. He nodded. He understood that kind of trouble. You can trust me, she said suddenly. I do not trust easy. I know. Then why do you let me stay? Because you have not tried to take anything from me. She smiled faintly. A small thing, but real. They flew on through the dark, past dead comets and silent stations, past the graves of old wars and forgotten colonies. The iron mule carried them steady and sure. And for the first time in years, Dylan did not feel alone. On the fifth day, a new signal appeared on the long-range scanner, faint but strong, a priority alert, encrypted but leaking through the noise. He showed it to Lila. Her face went still. What is it? He asked. Trouble. Before he could ask more, the alert repeated this time. Clearer. Recover the fugitive. She is not human. Repeat. Not human. Dylan looked at her. Her eyes held no fear, only resolve. They found me. Who are they? Those who serve the inner court. And that means. She stood, turned to him, her expression calm but urgent. Strap in. Why? Because we are about to fly faster than this ship has ever flown before. He did as she said. She took the co-pilot seat, her hands hovering over the controls. Ember perched on her shoulder, eyes bright with anticipation. Then, she flew. Not like a human. Not like someone learning the machine, but like someone remembering an old song. Her fingers danced across the panel systems, lit up in sequences Dylan had never seen before. The jump drive whined, then stabilized. The engines roared to life, and the stars outside blurred into streaks of light. They jumped, not to a safe port, not to a hidden base, but straight into the teeth of a solar storm. A place no sane pilot would go. But Lila was not just a pilot, and as the iron mule plunged into the storm, Dylan finally understood. She was something else entirely, something old, something powerful, and she was not running anymore. She was leading. The storm raged around them, plasma lightning crackling against the shields. But Lila guided, the ship through it like a dancer through fire. Ember's eyes glowed brighter with every turn, every correction. Dylan held on tight, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from something else, something like awe. When they emerged on the other side, the alert signal was gone, replaced by static. They had lost them. For no. Lila exhaled slowly, her hand still on the controls. Thank you, she said. For what? For believing in me even a little. He looked at her, then at the small dragon now nuzzling her cheek. You saved my life first. She smiled again. Then we are even. But Dylan knew they were not, because something had changed in him too. Something quiet, something waiting. And as the iron mule sailed on through the endless dark, he felt it stirring deep inside like a seed, planted in fertile ground ready to grow. Days passed in the quiet rhythm of deep space. The iron mule hummed along its patched hull. Holding together better than it had in years, Dylan Reeves moved through his routines, checking fuel levels, running diagnostics, cleaning filters, but his eyes kept drifting to the cockpit where Lila sat most of the time, her hands resting lightly on the controls as if listening to the ship's heartbeat. Ember stayed close, always within arm's reach, sometimes perched on the console, sometimes curled at Her feet, the little dragon, no longer seemed like a pet. It watched everything with sharp intelligence, eyes tracking every movement, every change in light or sound. Dylan tried not to stare, but he could not ignore the strangeness that clung to them. Like static, Layla spoke little, but when she did, her words carried weight. She asked about human history, not the wars or the politics, but the stories, the myths, the songs, people told around fires or in dark rooms. She listened with a kind of hunger, as if gathering pieces of something lost. Once he told her about the old tales of elves, beings of light and shadow, who lived in hidden forests and vanished. When the world grew loud, she did not react at first. Then she said, "Those stories are closer to truth than you think." He did not press. Instead, he watched. He noticed how the ship responded to her present systems that had glitched for months, ran smoother when she sat in the co-pilot seat. The nav computer displayed symbols he did not recognize, yet Lila read them without hesitation. Once during a solar flare, she placed her palm flat against the bulkhead and whispered something under her breath, and the radiation shielding stabilized instantly. He began to suspect she was not just a refugee. His suspicions deepened when they passed through a debris field near the Helios belt. The wreckage of an old freighter floated silently among the rocks. Dylan scanned it out of habit, looking for salvageable parts. But Lila stiffened in her seat. "Do not go closer," she said. "Why, that ship was destroyed by plasma cutters, not collision." "How do you know?" I recognized the pattern. Before he could ask more, a new signal cut through the comms, sharp and urgent. Priority 1. Alert. Recover the fugitive. She is not human. Repeat, not human. The voice was cold, mechanical, but the message was clear. Dylan's blood ran cold. He looked at Lila. Her face was calm, but her fingers tightened on the armrest. "They found us again." "Who are they?" "Those who serve the inner court." "What do they want?" "Me and the dragon, and what I carry." He wanted to ask what she carried, but the alert repeated louder this time, accompanied by a ship signature emerging from behind a nearby asteroid. Hunter-class interceptor, sleek black and bristling with weapons. Dylan's hands flew to the controls, but Layla placed a hand on his arm. "Wait, why? They will not fire yet, not here." "Why not?" "Because they want me alive." He did not like the certainty in her voice. "What do we do?" "Run," but the interceptor was faster. Unless what? Unless I fly." Before he could respond, she slid into the pilot's seat, her movement swift and sure. "Trust me," she said. He hesitated, then nodded. He moved to the co-pilot's chair, watching as her fingers danced across the panel systems, lit up in sequences he had never seen before. The jump drive whined, then stabilized. The engines roared to life, and the stars outside blurred into streaks of light. They jumped, not to a safe port, not to a hidden base, but straight into the teeth of a magnetized plasma storm, a place no sane pilot would go. But Lila was not just a pilot, and as the iron mule plunged into the storm, Dylan finally understood. She was something else entirely. Something old. Something powerful. The storm raged around them, plasma lightning crackling against the shields, but Lila guided the ship through it like a dancer through fire. Ember's eyes glowed brighter with every turn, every correction. Dylan held on tight, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from something else, something like awe. When they emerged on the other side, the alert signal was gone, replaced by static. They had lost them. For now, Lila exhaled slowly, her hand still on the controls. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For believing in me, even a little." He looked at her, then at the small dragon now nuzzling her cheek. "You saved my life first." She smiled again. "Then we are even." But Dylan knew they were not, because something had changed in him too. Something quiet, something waiting, and as the iron mule sailed on through the endless dark, he felt it stirring deep inside like a seed planted in fertile ground, ready to grow in the days that followed. Lila grew more open, though still careful with her words. She explained that her people had watched humanity for centuries, hidden among them, guiding evolution in subtle ways. They were not gods, not monsters, but guardians of balance. But a faction within her court had grown impatient. They believed humans were too violent, too reckless, and sought to cull the species before it could spread. Beyond its home system, Lila opposed them. She had stolen a key artifact, the Heartstone that could awaken dormant human potential. The mercenaries were not after her research. They were after the stone and the war. It could ignite. Dylan did not know whether to believe her, but when she showed him Ember's true form, a brief shimmer of wings wider than the cargo bay eyes burning with ancient fire, he knew she was not lying. Still he kept his distance, not from fear but from respect. One night as they drifted near a dead moon, Lila sat alone in the observation blister staring out at the stars. Dylan found her there. "You miss your home," he said. She did not answer right away. Then she said, "Home is not a place. It is a feeling. Do you still have that feeling?" "Sometimes." He sat beside her. Silence stretched between them. Comfortable, not tense. "Why did you choose me?" she asked. "What? Why did you help me?" He thought about it. "Because you looked like you needed it." She smiled faintly. "Most would have left me there maybe, but you did not." "No, because I saw something in you. Something real." She looked at him, then her eyes soft but deep. "You are rare." Dylan Reeves, he did not know what to say to that. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars drift by. Later that night, as he tried to sleep, he heard soft sounds from the cockpit. Not voices, but something like humming, low and resonant. It made the metal walls vibrate slightly. He got up and peeked through the door. Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, Ember in her lap, her hands resting on its back, both of them glowing faintly with a soft golden light. It faded as soon as she noticed him. "Sorry," she said. "I did not mean to wake you." "It's fine," he said. "What was that, a bond ritual?" "You and Ember." She nodded. "You are more than friends, we are one." He understood then that she was not just a woman with a pet. She was a queen with a guardian, and that changed everything. The next morning, the ship felt different again. Lighter, smoother, as if it had been tuned by invisible hands. The engines purred instead of groaned, the lights burned brighter. The air smelled cleaner. Dylan checked the logs. Nothing had changed on paper. But something had changed in truth. He found Lila in the cockpit again, staring out at the stars. "We are close," she said. "To what? To the edge?" The edge of what? Of everything. He did not understand, but he trusted her. Because in the silence of space, trust was the only thing that mattered. And as the iron mule sailed on through the endless dark, Dylan knew one thing. For certain, this was not just her journey anymore, it was his too. They reached the edge of known space where star charts ended and rumors began. The iron mule drifted past the last navigation buoy. Its signal long dead, and silent ahead lay the void, uncharted and unwelcoming. Lila stood at the main viewport, her silver-tinged skin catching the faint glow of distant nebulae. Ember rested on her shoulder, eyes half closed, but alert. Dylan watched her from the doorway. He had stopped questioning her choices days ago. Instead, he followed her lead, not out of fear, but out of a growing certainty that she knew something. He did not, something vital. "We are being watched," she said without turning. He scanned the sensors. Nothing registered. "I do not see anything." "They do not use machines to watch." "Then how?" With eyes older. "Then your son." He did not understand, but he believed her. "What do we do? Wait for what? For them to show themselves." Minutes passed, then hours. The ship floated in perfect stillness. No engine noise, no hum of life support. Just the quiet breath of two humans, and one ancient creature sharing the same fragile bubble of air. Then it happened. A ripple in space, not a jump. Not a warp, but a folding like fabric, pulled taut and released from the distortion emerged a vessel unlike any Dylan had seen before. It was long and slender, shaped like a leaf or a blade. Its surface shimmered with colors that shifted with every passing second. No weapons, no ports, no visible thrusters yet. It moved with impossible grace. Lila's hand tightened on the console. "They have come." "Who the silent ones? Are they friend or enemy?" "Neither. They are judges." Before Dylan could ask more, the comms crackled to life. Not with sound, but with thought. A voice not heard, but felt deep in the bones. "You carry the stone." Lila stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "I do know the law. I do then you know the price I'm willing to pay it." The voice paused, then the human must leave. Now the human is not part of this. He is part of everything. Now silence stretched thick and heavy. Dylan felt the weight of unseen eyes on him, not hostile, but measuring, weighing his worth. Then the voice spoke again. "Prove it, how let him choose." Lila turned to Dylan, her eyes searching his. They want you to decide. Decide what? Whether to stay or go if I stay. You join a war older than your species. If I go, you live. He looked at her. Then at Ember, then at the strange ship hanging in the dark. He thought of his old life hauling cargo through dead zones, running from debts and silence, always alone, always small. Then he thought of the last few weeks, the way the stars seemed brighter, the way his mind felt sharper, the way he no longer feared the dark. I stay. The moment the words left his mouth, the strange ship pulsed with soft light. The choice is made. The voice faded, and the vessel began to dissolve back into the fold of space until only ripples remained. Leela exhaled as if she had been holding her breath. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Because you are not alone anymore. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. They will come now, the inner court. They will not wait. What do we do? Go to Orion's Rest. Where is that? A station beyond the Helios belt. Lawless, forgotten, the kind of place where secrets are traded like currency. Why there? Because someone there can help us repair the Heartstone's field. It is weakening. How do you know? I have been there before. He did not ask when. They set course immediately, the iron mule groaning as it pushed its old engines to the limit. Lila took the pilot's seat again. Her hands, moving with quiet confidence, Ember curled at her feet, eyes closed but ears twitching at every shift in the ship's tone. Dylan manned the rear sensors, watching for pursuit, but none came. Not yet. Instead, the silence grew heavier, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. 2 days later, they dropped out of warp near a cluster of dead satellites orbiting a burnt-out star. Orion's Rest hung in the center, a massive ring-shaped station built from the wreckage of 100 ships. Its surface, patched and repatched over centuries, lights flickered along its spine like dying fireflies. Dylan guided the iron mule toward the main dock, his hands steady despite the knot in his stomach. He had been to Orion's Rest once before. Years ago, he had left with a broken nose and a stolen data chip. He did not plan to stay long. They cleared customs with minimal fuss. Lila wore a hooded cloak that hid her silver skin, and Ember stayed hidden in her satchel. The guards barely glanced at them too, busy arguing over a card game. Inside the station, the air was thick with smoke and sweat. The walls lined with stalls selling everything from illegal mods to memory wipes. Voices clashed in a dozen languages. Music thumped from hidden speakers, and the floor vibrated with the hum of hidden machinery. Lila moved through the crowd like a shadow, unnoticed but aware of everything. Where are we going? He asked. To see Maya. Who is Maya? An engineer. She owes me a favor. They wound through narrow corridors, past flickering signs and guarded doors until they reached a shop tucked into a dead-end alley. The sign above read simply, Parts Inside. The shop was cluttered with tools and half-built machines. A woman stood at a workbench, her hands deep in the guts of a plasma regulator. She looked up as they entered, eyes sharp and calculating. Lila Maya's voice was flat, but her eyes widened slightly. You are alive. Barely. Maya's gaze shifted to Dylan, then to the satchel where Ember peeked out with one glowing eye. And you brought a human. He is with me. Maya's expression softened slightly. She wiped her hands on a rag and stepped forward. You look like Helly have been through worse. What do you need? The Heartstone's field is failing. It needs a resonance stabilizer. Maya's face went still. You still have it. Yes, that is why they are hunting you. I know. Maya's eyes flicked to Dylan again. Then back to Lila. He knows she does. Maya's exhaled slowly, then nodded. I can help, but it will cost. Name it. I want passage off this rock. When this is over, you have it. Good. Maya's turned to a wall of shelves and pulled down a small device shaped like a tuning fork, its surface etched with symbols that shimmered faintly. This will sync with the stone, but it needs a power source. Something pure. Lila reached into her cloak and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with a soft golden light. The Heartstone. Maya stared at it for a long moment, then nodded. This will work, as Maya's worked. Lila sat quietly. Dylan watched her, noticing how her fingers trembled, slightly how her breathing was shallow. Are you hurt? She shook her head, just tired. Before he could ask more, alarms blared through the station. Sharp and urgent. Intruder alert. All decks locked down. Lila stood instantly, her eyes wide. They found us. How? They must have tracked the Heartstone's pulse. Maya's cursed under her breath and slammed a panel shut. You need to go now. What about the stabilizer? Almost done. She worked faster, her hands flying over the device, sparks flying from the connections. Dylan moved to the door, peering out into the corridor, ships inbound. How many? At least 3 armed. Very Lila closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. The little dragon leapt from her satchel and landed on the floor. Its body began to glow faintly, then brighter until the light filled the room. Dylan shielded his eyes as the form shifted, scales hardened, wings unfurled, and the creature grew until it filled half the shop. Its eyes burned with ancient fire, and its roar shook the walls. Maya stared. Inawa Skywarden. Lila placed a hand on Ember's neck. Stay close. The dragon lowered its head, letting her climb onto its back. Maya's handed her the stabilizer. Good luck. Thank you. Dylan hesitated, then followed Lila onto Ember's back. Hold on. He wrapped his arms around her waist just as the door exploded inward. Mercenaries poured in, clad in black armor, their weapons humming with charged energy. Lila did not wait. Ember leapt forward, crashing through the far wall and into the corridor. Its wings beat once, sending a shockwave that knocked the mercenaries off their feet. They flew through the station, alarms blaring, lights flashing, people screaming. Dylan held on tight, heart pounding as they raced toward the docks. The iron mule was still there, but surrounded. Lila did not slow. Ember dove straight for the ship, its claws tearing through metal as it landed on the hull. Get inside, she shouted. Dylan scrambled through the airlock as Lila followed close behind. Seal. The slammed the controls and the door shut just as weapons fire sparked against the outer hull. Lila ran to the cockpit, Ember shrinking back to its small form as it curled into the co-pilot's seat. Dylan took the helm. Where to Titan VY. That is where they plan to strike. Strike what? Earth. His blood ran cold. We have to stop them. We will. She placed the stabilizer against the heartstone, and the room filled with golden light. For a moment, Dylan felt something awaken inside him. Instincts, sharper senses, clearer mind, suddenly aware of patterns in the chaos. He understood then. This was not just her war. It was humanity's chance to evolve or perish, and he would not let them fall. The iron mule tore through the void, its patched hull groaning under the strain of speeds it was never meant to reach. Lila sat in the co-pilot's seat, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the console. Ember curled at her feet, eyes closed, but ears twitching at every shift in the ship's tone. Dylan gripped the controls, his knuckles white not from fear but from the weight of what lay ahead. Titan Zek loomed in the distance, a dead moon scarred by ancient wars and forgotten experiments. It was there the rebel faction planned to unleash the planet Cracker, a weapon capable of shattering Earth's core and silencing humanity. Before it could spread beyond its cradle. Lila had not spoken since they left Orion's Rest, her silence heavy. With purpose, Dylan respected it. He had seen enough to know that words were not always needed in the face of what was coming. As they neared the moon, sensors picked up multiple signatures, warships sleek and silent orbiting the far side of Titan. Their hulls dark as void, no transponders, no signals, just waiting. They know we are coming, Lila said. Probably. Do you fear them? No good. She turned to him, then her eyes deep and calm. What I am about to do will change everything. I know. You may not survive. Figure, then why stay? Because someone has to. She nodded as if that was answer enough. Ember stirred, then lifting its head and letting out a low hum. The sound vibrated through the cabin, and the heartstone on Lila's belt pulsed in response. Golden, light spreading through the room like Dondalan felt it again, that strange awakening inside him. Thoughts sharper, instincts clearer, as if a veil had been lifted from his mind. He looked at Lila. What do we do aboard their command ship? Ember will shield us. You are not serious. I am. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. This was not a plan. It was a path, and she had already walked it in her mind. They approached under cloak of a solar flare, the iron mule hidden in the radiation. Storm Lila guided them with impossible precision, weaving through debris and sensor nets until they were within docking range of the largest vessel, that is the Duskwarden. She said the flagship of the inner court. It looked like a blade forged from night itself, long and sharp with no visible seams or ports, just smooth obsidian surface that drank the starlight. How do we get in? Ember knows the way. The little dragon leapt onto the console and placed its claws on the nav screen. A symbol appeared, one Dylan had never seen before. A spiral with wings. Lila touched it. The ship shuddered, then a section of the Duskwarden's hull rippled like water and opened. They flew in. Inside, the corridor was dark and silent. No guards, no alarms, just smooth walls. That hummed with faint energy. Lila moved forward, Ember at her side. Dylan followed, weapon drawn. Though he knew it would do little good against what waited ahead, they reached the command chamber. A vast dome open to the stars above the planet Cracker. Floated in the center, a sphere of black metal pulsing with red light around it, stood figures tall and silver-skinned, their eyes burning with cold fire. "The inner court, you are too late, sister," one of them said, his voice like ice cracking. "Not while I breathe. You betrayed your kind. I protected the balance. The human does not deserve to live. He is more than you know." The leader stepped forward, his form shifting slightly as if barely holding his shape. "Give us the Heartstone and we will let him go, never then die with him." He raised his hand and the chamber filled with light, sharp and cutting. But Lila was faster. She activated the Heartstone, a pulse of golden energy swept through the room, and for a moment every human nearby felt something awaken inside. Them instincts, sharper senses, clearer minds, suddenly aware of patterns in the chaos. Dylan dropped to one knee as the wave hit him. Not pain, but power, flooding his veins, his vision sharpened. He could see the energy lines in the air, the weak points, in the enemy's armor, the rhythm of their breath. He looked at Lila, nodded. Go, he moved, not like a man, but like something more fluid, precise, deadly. The inner court turned to face him, but they were slow, their movements bound by ancient rules, while Dylan moved like the wind. He reached the planet Cracker first, his hands flying over the controls, searching for the kill switch. "It is coded to our blood," one of them shouted. "You cannot stop it." But Dylan was not alone. Lila stood behind him, Ember at her side, the dragon's eyes blazing as it projected a stream of symbols into the air. Dylan read them instantly, understanding the language as if it had always been his. She entered the sequence. The planet Cracker shuddered. No, the leader roared. "Yes, Dylan," said. The sphere dimmed, then went dark. Silence filled the chamber. The inner court stood frozen. Not in defeat, but in disbelief. "You have doomed us all," the leader whispered. "No," Lila said. "You were the ones who lost faith." She raised the Heartstone high and spoke words in a tongue older than stars. Light erupted from her body, not harsh but warm, filling the chamber with golden radiance. The inner court did not burn. They unraveled their forms, dissolving into mist that drifted toward the Heartstone and vanished. When the light faded, only Lila, Dylan, and Ember remained. The Dusk Warden groaned around them, systems failing as its masters were gone. "We have to go," Dylan said. She nodded. They ran back through the corridors, the ship shaking apart around them, Ember leading the way, its small form glowing with protective energy. They reached the Iron Mule just as the Dusk Warden began to collapse. Dylan fired the engines and they shot into open space just as the flagship imploded behind them. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Lila turned to him. "You saved them." "We saved them." She looked at Earth far in the distance, a blue dot in the dark. "They will not understand, maybe not yet, but they will." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are the first what? The first human to awaken." He did not know what that meant, but he felt it in his bones. Something had changed, not just in him, in all of them, and as the Iron Mule sailed on through the endless dark, Dylan knew one thing for certain. Humanity was no longer alone, and it would never be the same again. The Iron Mule drifted in the quiet dark far from the ruins of Titan 7 and the shattered remains of the Dusk Warden. Earth hung in the distance, a soft blue jewel wrapped in clouds and light. Dylan Reeves sat in the pilot's seat, his hands resting on the controls, not flying, just watching. Lila stood behind him, her silver skin catching the faint glow from the planet below. Ember curled at her feet, eyes half closed but alert. The little dragon had not spoken since the battle. Not with words, but with presence, a quiet hum that filled the cabin like a heartbeat. They had won, but victory felt heavy. Dylan turned to her. "What happens now?" She did not answer right away, her gaze fixed on Earth. "The Heartstone is safe. And your people, some will understand, others will not. Will they come again? Not soon. Why? Because you showed them something they did not expect. What, that humans can rise." He looked down at his hands, still trembling slightly from the surge of energy that had flowed through him during the fight. It had faded but not vanished. A quiet hum remained beneath his skin like a second pulse. You changed me. I only opened the door. He nodded. What do I do now, Liv? Just that. She stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. You are the first Dylan, the first human to awaken fully. The others will follow in time, some slowly, some fast, but they will feel it. The pull, the call, the knowing, and when they do, you will be ready. He wanted to ask more, but the look in her eyes told him some things could not be explained, only lived. They stayed in orbit for 3 days, watching the planet turn beneath them. Cities blinking to life at night, oceans shifting with the wind, forests breathing in the sun. On the 4th day, Lila packed a small bag. You are leaving. Yes, where will? You go where I am needed. Will I see you again? She looked at him, then at Ember. The dragon lifted its head and let out a low humper. Perhaps that is not an answer. It is the only one I have. He nodded, understanding. Thank you for what? For showing me there is more. She smiled faintly, a small thing, but real. Thank you for believing in me even when you did not understand. They stood in silence for a long time. Then she turned to leave. Ember stayed. Lila paused. You will watch over him. The dragon nodded once, its eyes glowing. Softly, she reached out and touched its head, then turned and walked down the corridor without looking back. Dylan did not follow. He knew better. When the airlock cycled and the small shuttle detached, he watched it until it vanished into the stars. Then, he was alone, but not really. Ember leapt onto the console and placed its claws on the nav screen. A symbol appeared, one Dylan now recognized, the spiral with wings. He touched it. The ship responded instantly, systems lighting up in ways they never had. Before the Iron Mule felt alive, not just a machine but a partner. He set a course for the outer rim, not running, not hiding, just moving. Weeks passed. He visited colonies he had never seen before, places where people spoke in hushed tones of strange, lights in the sky of dreams that felt too real, of children who drew symbols they had never been taught. He listened. He helped. He did not speak of Lila or the Heartstone or the war among the stars. But sometimes in the quiet of night, he would sit in the cockpit and Ember would hum that low resonant sound and the stars would seem closer, brighter. One evening near the edge of known space, he received a signal. Faint but clear, it was not a voice but a feeling. A pull like a compass needle turning, followed it deep into a nebula where light bent in strange ways. He found a ship adrift, its hull scarred but intact. He docked and stepped inside. The cockpit was empty except for a single item resting on the chair. Small crystal glowing with soft, golden light. The Heartstone, and beside it a note written in simple script. For the first, he picked it up and felt the hum inside him grow stronger. Ember watched from the doorway, eyes bright with knowing. Dylan placed the stone in a secure compartment, then returned to the helm. Where to now, he asked. The dragon leapt onto the console and tapped a new coordinate. He smiled, and flew. Months later, stories began to spread through the fringe worlds of a lone pilot who appeared in times of need, who flew, a battered cargo hauler with impossible skill, who carried no weapons but always left hope behind. Some called him a ghost, others a guardian. One knew his name, but those who met him said his eyes held the stars, and his ship always purred like it was singing back on Earth. Scientists noticed changes too subtle to measure, but real children solved problems faster. Pilots flew with uncanny precision. Artists painted visions of places they had never seen. No one knew why, but in the deep quiet of space, a small dragon curled on a console and hummed, and far away on a hidden moon, a silver-skinned woman watched the stars and smiled, because the seed had been planted, and it was growing. Dylan never returned to his old life. He did not need to. He had found something greater, not a war, not a throne, not even a purpose, but a path. And he walked it one star at a time with Ember at his side, and the echo of Lila's voice in his heart. Humanity was no longer alone, and it would never be the same again.